What up, guys? It's Coach Nation. First episode ever of the Champs Corner. And today here we have our guest, George. What's up, brother?
Yeah.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Stoked to be here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. My name is Jorge Gomez. I'm a brand designer and graffiti writer. Been producing work under the Money Studio for the past 3 years, ongoing to 4 already. It's trippy. But
Time goes quick, huh?
really quick, yeah. But at the Money Studio, we build brands for BIPOC-owned businesses and allies alike, where we encourage companies to convey their story and preserve their culture.
That's dope, man. So that's, that kind of brings us around to, how we know each other in our relationship, right? We have a little bit of a, I don't know, we co-mingle in a lot of different spaces.
Yeah.
You're my student, but I'm also your client. You did all the design work, the current design work for the lab, and all the planning and the identity structure and all those kinds of things. But at the same time, we're also homies, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think there's like, how do we keep that balance? Because there is a balance of like having to be professional at certain times, but then also like when we're not working, we're just hanging out. Like, what do you think holds this like that line?
I think you know what's funny, when I first started coming to the lab, one of the first things I told myself was, I'm not gonna talk work here. Like, I don't even want people to really know what I do for a living, because this was gonna be kind of like my little sanctuary away from that, But like you said, we just kind of started chopping up, and one thing led to the next, and eventually, it came out to like what it is that I do. And it was really, what's the word, like organic,
Mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't feel like forced. Even I told myself like, oh, I don't want to bring work here. It just kind of came out in an organic way, a way that like didn't feel like, oh, you're trying to get free work from me, or you're trying to like pitch, like get ideas from me. Like, it wasn't nothing like that. And again, that's what like started off the homie thing, right? Because like that's how like I talk to my homies about like the stuff that I do. But I think what kind of ties a lot of that stuff together is I think it's our stories. I think we have like powerful stories. Aside of that, it's like we have like real life shit that has like happened to both of us, And even though it's like sometimes it's completely different, it happened to you completely different, I'm just like, whoa, that kind of happened to me, but in a different way, or it lined up differently.
The outcome of it was something similar, right?
Yeah, so I think that's definitely where like that strong foundation hit, you know what I mean? Because like immediately, like I said, well, obviously I did research before coming here, so like I already had the level of respect for you, like walking into your place and knowing a little bit about you and like what the lab was. And then as we got to know each other, I felt like your respect for me grew in like the field that I do, like the things that I do and what I'm good at. You started understanding. And one thing is that like people ask me a lot of times, like, what are you doing? And just kind of like, like, okay. And then they kind of move on, not knowing exactly what it is. Like, you didn't, you kept like asking me questions that are just like, oh, he's listening,
right.
And yeah, I think that's definitely what I think holds us down between, when we have to, take off the homie hats and put on the work hats, and it's like this level of mutual respect for, what it is each of us do, and the understanding, right? And I think beyond like knowing what we do, we know exactly what we want to do,
right?
Like I know
and where we came from too.
Yeah.
I think that's true, because like there's times where I don't realize when we change the hats on, because like we'll literally be chopping it up about something completely random, but then out of there sparks an idea for something either for you or for me or for both of us, and then we'll be talking about, like, even our voice changes when we start talking about. But I don't think we realize that sometimes, and then next thing you know, we're like 5 designs deep into something, or into an art show, that we just kind of put on, which was pretty big, I think, for for both. It was definitely the biggest event that we've had here at the lab, and I don't know how you felt about it, but it felt damn good to, on my end, that during the art show, I know I said it to you in the text and in person, but like the space was living up to its purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this was a place for people to come express freely in the ways that they feel most comfortable in,
Yeah.
right? And that day, we literally had different forms of expressions of art, right? We had martial arts, we had graffiti, we had different type of paintings or art, different types of versions of art and different expressions from people, singing, rapping,
Yeah.
performance, spoken word, like all of it.
Even the food.
Even the food,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And even the food had its own twist to like
Mm-hmm.
to its normal reality of it,
Yeah.
right? So it was cool to see that, for one, people had a place to do that, and then people that look like us as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
But then other people that look like us came to enjoy that,
Yeah.
you know, and got a chance to come in and just witness that and be a part of it instead of just like, no, I don't think there was ever people that came in here, looked and left.
Yeah. No.
You know,
No.
People
Definitely.
came in, people hung out, people got to know each other, people spent time,
Yeah.
you know, and some money that went to, you know, to a good cause and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was cool to see that the lab was living up to its purpose. I don't like, what did it look like from your perspective?
You know, I just had that big old show before that, like a month before that.
And you swore you weren't gonna do
Yeah,
it.
and then I wasn't gonna do it, so then like we ended up doing this, and I think, you know, it was just kind of like, for me again, confirmation that like I could do this, you know. I got the right people to help me with this, that trust me, because that's a big portion of it, you know. And I think as I grow, you know, as an entrepreneur, as a creative, and all of that, you hear it all the time, like you can't do it alone, you know.
Right.
I think it's common mainstream idea that like, you know, I did it all on my own, but it's like, nah, nobody really does, you know. And it takes a while to really get that trust from people, be able to properly paint that picture to other people so that they willingly can follow and contribute,
Right.
you know. So to me, that second time around was kind of like, okay, cool. Like, I'm a little bit more comfortable. It was still not as stressful, but definitely the work needed to be put in, and it was quick.
Our
you know?
turnaround time was, we had what, like a month maybe?
Yeah, like a month and a
Yeah.
half, you know, and so it felt nice too that like, dang, like how quickly we were able to push that out. Like that was for me the most impressive portion of things. That like, okay, cool, started out something small, and then it was like, I think because we had a pretty strong foundation, we were able to kind of stack on top of it and on top of it to have it become what it did.
Ideas, and then some of the other strategic partners that jumped in to help us.
Yeah, exactly. Like that all benefited everything and just gave it, you know, that cherry on top that we needed.
But I don't think, you know, those strategic partners would have jumped on if we weren't doing what we were doing.
Yeah,
You know, if we
exactly.
were lollygagging and things like that.
Yeah,
I don't think they would have jumped on and helped.
and that's what I mean. That's the trust,
Right.
you know, and this whole being able to paint the picture for people as clear as possible. And you know, one thing is that like what I've learned is like you could have that picture painted perfectly in your head. You're gonna sit down with those initial people. You're gonna tell it to them, and they might just get sold on your passion. You know,
Right.
they just be like, you know what, I didn't hear anything you said, but like I'm down with you.
Right.
And so cool. But then the true kind of like leadership in you shows when you got to paint that same picture like 3, 5, 10 times during that entire process to the same people to make sure that they stay on board.
And that they fully understand it and grasp.
Yeah.
And don't, you know, shoot off into different directions.
Yeah, they need to be
Yeah.
able to kind of like, you know, it's cool if it takes 5 times or whatever, but they need to be able to, like, there needs to come a time where they're just like, okay, I know what my role is and I'm gonna do it to its full capacity. I no longer need to be like,
Totally.
you know, bothering you guys about like the small little details. Like I'll figure it out, you
Right.
know. And from again, just like from a leadership standpoint, being able to kind of like see that in those people to begin with, that's one of the difficult things.
Man, I think talking about the hardest things, I think was, for one, everyone always needed something from you and I.
Yeah.
The whole month and a half,
Yeah.
right? And I think that probably more from you than from me, but like there was definitely, when you weren't around, they were calling me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and it was just like one of those battles. But then, not to mention, we were behind the stage doing what we had to do to make sure that the show went on, but then we also performed.
Yeah.
We were part of the show as well in different parts of it as well. So like I think that was definitely like we had to plan accordingly.
Yeah.
Because I think that day was like, did you eat that day? I don't think I ate.
No, they
nighttime.
even brought us food at night.
Yeah.
Like at 9 p.m. they gave me food and I walked around with it in my hand for like an hour.
I think they was trying to take it from me.
Yeah, oh yeah. You know, and I took it home
Yeah.
and
You probably didn't eat it.
I didn't eat it.
Yeah.
You know, that was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like those days. There's no. My dad kept trying to feed me this burrito. I'm like, I'm good right now. Like, I need to figure this out first.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like that brings me back to just like our personalities and how at our core we're pretty similar, and I think we keep coming back to that. But that reminds me of like when, like, do you remember when you first started? And like I think you called me or texted me or DM'd me
Yeah.
quite a few times.
Yeah.
And me in my natural habitat probably wasn't responding.
Yeah.
Right? And that never stopped you from the persistency of like, man, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that there was a day where I finally hit you up and was like, can you come this Saturday? Or something like that. Like
Yeah, early. I live early, yeah.
And then I don't even know what you said because I never opened the message.
Yeah.
And I never confirmed, and you still showed up.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I had just got done with a private, and I was laying on the floor, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it was, I think, Prince and Anais.
Yeah, it was.
And they were just chopping it up, and I was laying on the ground, and then you came in, I was like,
Who the hell's this guy?
yeah, well, shit. But I knew who it was immediately because I was like, damn, but we never confirmed.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I wasn't expecting you to show up. But in that moment, for one, it took me, I was just like, fuck, like, I need to get up off this ground right now. But two, I was like, oh, this guy needs to train here. Like, that was the first thought that went through my mind. Like, there was like, he wants and needs this training. Like, that's, like, he's here for this. And, like, you know me and my little vetting process, too, of, like, making sure that people, like, at the lab, we're serious about what we do here, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't come only from me, that comes from you and everybody else in this community, right? Like, everyone in here is like, once they're in here, yes, we're family, yes, we talk, yes, we have a lot of fun, but we work.
Yeah.
There's not one person in here slacking off. Everyone's here is wholeheartedly pursuing their journey on whatever that is. We're all here for different reasons, but at the same time, we all push each other. So like, I'm very like specific about who I let in to our community because of that, right? We can't have one person come in here and like fuck that up for everybody, right? Like, we're in here, and that doesn't mean that we don't want other people in here, because we do, but we want to make sure those people are just as serious.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not as disciplined, maybe they need the help, like, that's why they're here.
Yeah.
And we're all here to help them, but they can't be in here on their own agenda.
Yeah.
Right? And that moment when you walked in, I was just like, yeah, he's one of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't even remember exactly what the conversation was, but I just remember you being like, I'll be here Monday to train.
Yeah.
And I don't like, it was something along those lines, right? And it's like, you were there Monday, you signed the contract, and now we're here.
Yeah. No, and I came prepared that morning, because it was like 7 a.m. or something
crazy.
And I was like, well, like, I'm about to work out, and even just a simple fact, like, well, no, we're gonna start Monday. I was like, cool. You know, I think it's those type of moments for a lot of people that makes it easier to like not do it.
Right.
You know, and for me, I was like, nah. And you're right though. Like, I think we were talking about this not too long ago.
It was one more test.
Yeah.
See if he makes it to Monday.
Yeah. And you're right. It's like there was a lot going on in my life at that moment. You know, like my daughter was gonna be born anytime soon.
So
And
she was already pregnant?
yeah, she was pregnant.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She was already. Yeah, remember I did class for 2 weeks and then I had to miss a few days because Yulia was born. I remember that. So, like, that was a major
I
something
don't know
major.
why I felt like we met before Susie was pregnant.
And yeah, so I think that's why it just like that was one big major change in my life, you know. And then I had been working for myself already for like 2 years. First year, honestly, just struggling.
Yeah.
You know, like the worst of the worst. So
It's
it's
the
like
hardest year.
yeah, it's like you're working and not get like that's what literally what I was doing. I was working for free, like and not even on real life projects. It's like just setting up systems, trying so hard to build a network, and finally
Systems that you don't know are gonna work.
yeah. And then awkwardly enough, like during you know towards the end of that, like things kind of picked up, and I was just like, cool, this is I need some sort of other, like something else to kind of keep me on track. And again, I was tapping a lot into myself, into like a lot of my past, the things that I've always wanted to do, and this was one of them. You know, like you know, training like some sort of martial arts since I was a kid. You know, I was telling Susie about it when not too long ago either, and I was like, damn. I remember the first time I went to, I think it was a karate class, and I was a kid, and when I was a kid, I lived in an apartment complex, and I grew up with these 4 kids that were roughly all around my age. But they were honestly like one of the poorest families in that apartment, you know, but they were my best friends. And so one of the things was the dad was really into martial arts. He would, every time on his days off, he would sit there and watch Kung Fu movies. And instead of me going play with the kids, I would just sit on the couch and just watch them, you know? And it was finally one day he had heard that this karate class was giving out like free classes for the days for kids, you know. And so he's like, I'm taking the kids all, you know. And I actually go everywhere with them, so they took me to and went to class, and like I fell in love, you know, like being able to hit the pads. They were making to do like rolls and you know a bunch of little kids.
All the basic stuff.
All the basic stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember going back and telling mom like, I want to do this like this, and she was like, well, how much is it? She asked our neighbor. He was like, it's gonna be this much a month. She kind of just like, yeah, right, you know.
I'm not paying that for that.
Yeah. So it never happened, you know. And I think again, I tried asking when I was a little bit older, and again, it was kind of dismissive. Like any extracurricular activity, like my parents just couldn't afford to have me do them, you know. So even though I loved art since I was a little kid, couldn't afford for me to do art classes or anything like that. Public schools didn't offer it, you know. So it was something that never I was able to pursue on my own. So again, being older, tapping into that portion of me, I was kind of like, you know what? Now I'm like, for one, I think I have the discipline to like show up for myself, and
Right.
2, like I can afford it, you know. So let's try it, and yeah,
So what brought you in here though?
a fuckload of research.
Yeah, but like,
Yeah.
like what about it though? What was the research you found? Like,
Yeah, so I mean, you know me since we work together. Like I always tell you, research is key. Like I dive deep into whatever problems we're having and to try to figure it out. And so that was a problem I was having, right? I was like, there's a million different studios. There's a bunch of different martial arts you could go into, or you could simply go to work out at a gym or get a personal trainer. And one thing that I already knew this, you know, I had already tried it probably when I was like 25 or something. I was like, I'm gonna join a boxing gym. And I had a few homies that did boxing at different places, so I went to their places. And as soon as I walked in, I was like, oh man, like you could just like feel the egos in there, you know?
It's a fight. It's a straight fight gym.
Yeah, you feel it. Like everyone just like is looking at you like ugly, like you know, judgmental. And I'm sure they're thinking what everybody's thinking too, like, oh, I'm gonna piece this full up, or like, he's not gonna last, and like all those negative things, you know. And I felt those things, you know, and already, you know, like by nature soy peleonero, like you know what I mean. Like since I was a kid, like fighting was just. It probably comes from anger issues. I don't know. Like I liked it, you know.
It's in your nature.
Yeah. Like I really something that always came natural to me. But the older I got, the more I understood too that like I really don't know how to fight, you know, and I didn't like that.
Right.
Yeah, I'll get down, you know what I mean? Like you know, as a graffiti writer, like I told you crazy stories that I run into fools, and like I'm not backing down. Like I'm gonna fight even if I don't know how, and I ain't gonna show it, you know.
Right.
But deep down inside, knowing that, I was like, I need to do something about that. It's a problem. But yeah, going to these different gyms, I was like, I don't like that vibe. I don't like that vibe of like going there and already being like shoved out to the corner. You know what I mean? Like he's new, like we're only gonna go to him and we're gonna use him as a punching bag, like that type of feeling. So I was like, how am I gonna find a place that's not like that? And that was one of the key things I was looking for. A place that was I'm gonna humbly present myself as like, and tell you guys like, I don't know anything, period. You know what I mean? And I'm willing to learn, and I will do everything in my power to like help you build me up, right?
Which is what we need, right? So it's literally a team effort. Like,
yeah.
There's no,
exactly.
I'm gonna give you all the tools that you need and guidance, but
yeah,
you gotta do the work.
Yeah,
like, there's no way around it.
And I think once I found I forgot what other place around here, and it was like I was looking at that one and I was like, that one just seems like I'm just a number. And then I was like, then I looked at it and I found you, you know? No, it's more like you found me, because it started popping up on my feed. You know, nations I started popping up on my feed, and I saw it once and I was like, this is cool. And then kind of disregarded it, and then it popped up again. I was like, this is my algorithm's trying to tell me something, you know? And so that's when I started like, again, I jumped on your page and I was like, oh, one video, oh, one post, and then I'm reading up on it. I was like, okay, and then it just read to like reading every single one, watching every single one, and just getting a feeling of like, okay, this isn't just like an ego-driven place, you know? This is a place where like, I'm gonna walk in, I was at the worst shape in my life at that point too. Even Abuelo, your dad, like, you know, clowns on me, you know what I mean? But he does it in a way that like, look at you now, you know, like you really switched up, as a true testament to like what this place could do to you. And
what you could do for yourself if you dedicate time and effort.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think coming in here was really, like you said, it was right off the bat, you feel the team effort. It wasn't just like you telling us what to do, how to do it. Whoever I partnered up with was like, hey, pick up your hand, like, hey, your feet is wrong, like little things, and it's just like, okay, cool, like, you're not just trying to like take advantage of the guy that doesn't know anything here, you know?
Like going back to what we said earlier about like vetting people and making sure they're serious, it just means that. It doesn't mean nothing else, right? Because like, even when you do join, you're not really ready, right? But everyone in here is dedicated to helping you get ready, right? So like the way I look at it is like we move like a clan of samurai, right? But when you join, you're not one yet. Right? You need to become one. But how does one become one? Right? By the other samurai, iron sharpens iron. Right? We're gonna give you everything you need to become one. We want you a part of the pack. We just want to make sure you're serious about wanting to be with us. The loyalty, all those things, right? And the reason we feel that way is because we don't want to invest time into someone that's not gonna do it. Right? And like, that doesn't mean that you need to be here forever, because like we've seen some of the guys, especially the young guys, right? Like we've been seeing like Miguel went to the Marines, you know? One of our other was just talking to him, Aaron, he's at the Navy Academy right now, right? And like Tino's going through the sheriffs. Like we're getting everyone ready for the next stage. Right? And like the cool thing about all these guys is like they're still around, even when they're still like when they come back, they still come by. They're still a part of our clan. You know, they still represent like what we're about, what we do, give a strong foundation. You know, so like when you talk about like coming in and being like your first time and not feeling intimidated, it's like we don't want to intimidate you. We want you to be like us. Right? But not like us as a person, as like we already followed this way. We know it's worked for us. So we're just gonna give it back, and someone did it for us. Right? So it's like super. Now you do it.
That's what I was gonna say. That's one of my favorite things too. You know, when I would come in with like the lower classes now, and then we see a new guy.
The lower classes. You're top dog now.
And then it's like you know, I would love when like you or Coach Seabass would be like, you're partnering up with George, you know, and I used to like take a little pride in that, like, all right, cool, you know, and one of my like I felt like I had a responsibility to like, all right, let's get you up to speed, you know.
Pretty much. That's why it's done.
Yeah, like, oh, do this. Oh, this helps you better when you throw a punch, when you throw a kick. Like, make sure you do this. And it's like all the things that were taught to me, you know. And it's almost like
that you understand now.
Yeah,
Part of who you are.
yeah, and trying to convey that information back. I think, like I told you before, I was like, I love teaching. Period.
Right.
You know. So when it gave me another subject to teach that like I understand, I'm like, okay, cool. It feels amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that being said, man, you're the kind of guy that learns something and it becomes a part of you, right? Which is ultimately what we're all striving to do.
Yeah.
How has training affected like your creativity or your creative approach to your work, to your design work, to your artwork, to your to your everyday life, you know?
Yeah, I think to begin with, it felt. I think I would tell this to people all the time, especially starting off, and they would give me like props on certain things, like, "Whoa, you picked that up quick," and I'd be like, "Well, it makes sense to me. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but sometimes you would give like the really literal explanation, the step by step, and I'd be like, okay." And we always talk about that, and I'd be like, I don't know, like I'm having trouble with it specifically with this, and you're just like, oh, imagine you're doing this, and then you paint a picture of me that has nothing to do with martial arts. It has it's like a really personal thing, or like personal movements that like, imagine you're doing this, or picture this, and I'm like, got it, and it makes so much sense.
I think your favorite one is that when I told you to put skinny jeans on?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so funny that like I always imagine doing that every time I feel like, no matter how much like the pressure is on around us, like I always imagine that, and it
slows
works.
down time for a second.
Yeah,
right?
and it works. But doing what I do, I really, and it's not just what I do. I think a lot of people that we know, that we respect highly, doing what they do, it's like it takes a lot of discipline and like passion. Like you really got to put in like crazy hours to learn something, and it's not fun. Like reading mad books on something is not fun.
Right.
Rewriting that information so it makes sense to you is like not fun.
Right. And we're going through the growing pains.
Yeah.
To like become that.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm just thinking too, like I was telling you earlier, it's just like working for free. What I was doing was like, okay, let me mock up a contract. 15-page contract and like understand everything in there.
Right.
Like for no other real client, like it doesn't exist,
Right.
And I was like, let me make this whole project up, build strategy, identity, a marketing campaign, everything. This client doesn't exist, This is just what I like imagine.
But it becomes part of your resume.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not fun. Like it's not fun knowing that you did like 6 months worth of work and you didn't see a check at the end. But then things happen and boom, the work pays off. You get your first client or whatever.
And then you have your template, and then
Yeah. So like when I came in here, I think again it's something that I sometimes tell all the guys. I was like, you need to have an open mind. Like let go of like, oh, I know this, or I saw this on YouTube and stuff like that. Like let go of that and just like open your mind up to like the idea that like I'm here and I don't know anything. Right. I think that helps you move faster. And like you learn so much more faster. And that was something that even I had trouble, in the beginning of like trying to come with the open mind. But something that I would tell myself is like, I'm humbling myself. I'm now a student, I'm coming from a place where I felt like I'm really good at what I do, and it's a whole different subject. So now I gotta humble myself.
Right. Which is the best part of being a student.
Yeah.
Right? Is to not have to be the master at it.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I always kind of remember is, Anthony Bourdain. He's that famous chef, traveled the world, has that dope show. He was one of I used to love watching his show since I was a kid. And one of the things that he would say, he used to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he would say, like, I'm not the best at this, but it's really dope to do something outside of what you're really good at and suck a little less every day.
Right.
He's like because I'm not going to be like champion for this or Olympic champion for this or nothing. He's like, but every day I show up, I do my time, and I learn something new, and I suck a little less at it. He's like, that feels really great, coming from a place where like I'm more respected, everybody looks to me and I'm the master, you know, for
Right.
cooking.
I think the other thing about being a student in that way is like it helps like when you're a master at something, the wins in how much you get better at those margins get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
you're already great at it.
Yeah.
So like your next big wins, like you don't know when, but when you go back to being a student somewhere else, there's like wins that you keep accumulating that overall help push you up on this side too.
Yeah.
That without this, you may have not gotten this reach on this side.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say too. Is like, you know, we're doing this right now, Fiercely Seeking, and I'm just like, this is confidence for me. This is something that like I felt like I was lacking. And I mentioned, you know, soy peleonero at heart, and I would show up to a lot of places, and I just felt like I needed to have my guard up. Like, you know, my guard's always up, but it's never like showing, you know. And I felt like because I felt insecure in that sense of like I don't really know how to protect myself and the people around me, then I better put that face on so nobody like approaches us, you know. Or even, you know, I'm imagining a bar or any kind of setting, parties and stuff like that. And over time, that has like faded, you know. And then now I'm like, it's funny as I talk to my homies, and I'm just like, I don't remember the last time I really got into an altercation. I can remember the last time like someone kind of provoked me, and I just kind of like laughed it off, you know what I mean? But it's again like confidence, and then it just also translates like, you know, clients. We were just talking about clients, you know, not too long ago for starting this, and he was saying that like people obviously perceive me a certain way, and it's happened since I was a kid. You know, like since I was little, they were just
and when
like,
you say perceive a certain way, what do they perceive you as?
a hood brown motherfucker. Yeah, like they see me right up. There's just no hiding it. You know,
there's nothing like you could never be nothing more than that, right?
Yeah. And I've had experiences where like I've worked at like, you know, some high end spots around top motherfuckers, and at the end of the day, their true colors show, because then they walk up to me and they're still like, yo, George, what's good? And I'm like, why are you talking like that? Like, I didn't hear you talking like that at all in the meeting,
right.
You know? I was like, but you look at me like that, you know?
Right.
Even though if I just gave the presentation to execs, you know, about like $250,000 marketing campaign presentations and shit like that. But I think now, like, I'm able to kind of, you know, shake that off, and it's all like due to the confidence, and it's also just like, I don't know, you know, something that I love that you always tell us, you know, it's like everything you teach us, eventually you get so comfortable with it because you understand the concept that when situations happen or we're sparring and stuff, like all we're really doing is plug and playing, you know? And that's how I look at design work, you know? Sometimes you talk to me about designs and you're just like, I think it's this, but I think it's that, I don't know. I was like, let me figure that part out, you know? Because that's the part where like, I take everything you just said, it's like 20 different ingredients. Now I'm just gonna plug and play, you know?
Right.
Now I'm gonna try this. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, this.
Right.
And sometimes we end up with something that's like completely different, but it works, you know?
But it's still based off the same ingredients, right?
Exactly,
so it's just not the path we were looking at.
Exactly.
But we couldn't see it without you actually letting the master go to work. It's like, why am I trying to do that? He's the master at that. But yet I still try.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like the whole idea of the teaching. Like I love teaching, and when I told you from the beginning, I was like, okay, you're gonna hire me to do this project, but the reality is like you're gonna also work hard too, you know, because this is new to you. So you have to work hard to understand this, and it's my job to educate you upon it. And it's the same thing that you do for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's you could you could give me the curriculum, but like if I don't put in the hours, if I don't show up, if like I don't take the patience, the time for it, like it's just never gonna work out.
Right.
And it's like it's dope to see you now that we're just like you come really humbly, like, hey, look, like check out my design since I put this together, and I can already sense kind of like a little bit of shyness, but I look at him like, damn, like fucking you get it, you know what I mean? Like you have like no background in this, but it also makes me feel good because I'm like, dope, like I did a good job, you know?
It's straight up. I mean, I got raw ideas, you know, and just very passion driven to trying to make the. Like I have obviously like I'm pretty good at like visualizing something, and it may not be in a like it typically never in my head never looks like a designer in a literal art format, right? But I have it clearly in my head, like I have the story clear. So after you've given me a lot of those like tips or just plug and play. Like you give me a lot of tools to play with. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, now how do I express what I'm seeing in my head, and through the lens of the tools that you've shared with me,
Yeah.
right? Because like that's really what I need to do to like, me. I'm always trying to push for that next level,
Yeah.
and just there's certain things that like I don't have to waste your time with. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like there's certain things that's like, man, like I'm gonna call George when I need him.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there's certain things I'm like, man, I can knock this out, and then just shoot it over real quick to my mentor. Like, what do you think? We've gotten pretty good at trading corners in that.
Yeah.
In that way.
Like I said, you're just getting better. Now I'm just like, oh, just move this one over here, change that color to this, and it's good. It's nothing major anymore.
I think the last one was for the art show when I did those things.
Yeah.
And literally your only suggestion was like, they were just like bouncing, right? So you like just line them up or something. And
Yeah,
change
it was
the
that.
color, and I was just
done.
like, oh, damn, I wasn't far off. Like, or I think I just added too many things or something too.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see the progression on both ends.
Yeah.
And it's cool to have like we were talking earlier about you can't do it alone, and it's just finding the right people for the right job. But that doesn't always necessarily mean that like how do I say, like sometimes we think that like that necessarily means that someone has to work for you.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when we think about it that way, but it's like, no, man, it's just a team.
Yeah.
Right? And like neither of us we technically both work for each other. But like we don't ever view it that way, right? It's like it's a collaboration effort where it's just like, man, we're just on the same team.
Yeah.
We're trying to we got a similar vision for two different things.
Yeah.
But our visions also coincide in so many places that it's like, yo, we can just work together throughout the whole thing, and like there's obviously a friendship and a family feeling that also like helps that, and then not to mention just our personalities just like flowing through that too, So it's cool to have somebody like you on the team, man.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Likewise. I think what was I gonna say? It's just the team aspect of things. I think I told you this one time. I think we're probably both going through hard times or something, and I was just like, you know what? I just want to make this clear that like your best interest is always in my favor. Like I'm never gonna try to guide you to do, to try to get like $1 out of you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or like if I see even something's not $1, something's like some personal benefit. You know what I mean? But if I see that like, oh, this isn't gonna get you, because I know what your goals are. If it's not gonna help you get there, like.
Oh, you talked me out of the project a few times already.
Yeah, and I'm just like, then why? You know what I mean? Because I told her like I had to make a serious change in my personality, and sometimes it might mean that like I gotta suffer a little bit too with you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like and I've learned to be okay with that pain, and because I know that's not our path. Like our path is more rocky. It's gonna be more painful. It's gonna be harder. It's uphill. Like. And then there is a shortcut that we could take, and we could both go down it. I was like, but that's a short path. Like, nah, let's take the long one. It's
the way where we really need to be going.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely been some times where, we've been joking around with this that Shaq and Kobe thing.
Yeah.
And then there's just times where I'm like, I was trying to figure out who was who. You know what I mean? And then I was thinking, for one, it doesn't really matter, right? But two, I was just like, man, I'm oftentimes very like, I got this idea, I'm going.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, let's go. Like I'm running through motherfuckers, and you're like, all right, bro, go score that real quick. But we really need to go this way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let them score one. It's all good.
Yeah.
Like, we gotta, you sniping people, and I'm just running through motherfuckers. So sometimes, like, I don't want to say pull me back, because it's not. It's like you redirect my energy into a place where I told you I wanted to go in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes I get very excited or passionate about something, and I can't stop thinking about that thing.
Yeah.
Even though that thing may not necessarily be the best next step towards the direction I wanted to go in. But once I got that in my mind, I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
So it's like, But it's funny though, because there's times where you do let me just take the ball, and then there's times where you're like, "Hey man," and you take that from me, and you're like, "Hold on, like we don't need to shoot yet."
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, we don't need to shoot yet. You know?
Because I understand that like you're your own person, you know, like you're your own man, and like sometimes you do gotta either learn the hard way or you gotta like get that win yourself, you know what I mean, and see how you feel at the end of that. And,
Right.
like, if you do score, like that's dope. I'm happy for you. You score, but then I'm gonna be like, how do you feel? You know?
Right.
You know, did it really help you achieve that feeling, or did it help you like achieve, you know, whatever goal you had in mind? And you know, there's been times where it's just like, well, no, not really. You know, I'm like, cool. Well, now you know what that feels like. You know, now we gotta let's get back on track. You know,
Yeah.
let's try this way and shit. And the same thing goes for me too. You know, that I think one thing that like, you know, that I right away back again relay, we're just like, oh shit, we have more in common than we do. You know, it's like we start finding out that like, oh shit, you like to read, I like to read. You
Right.
know? You like to journal, like I like to journal and shit.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy, you know. And I know what that's like to. I have like an idea for something every day too, you know. And it took me a while to realize that like it's okay to have them, write them down, but right now it's not the time. And I think we were even talking about like probably graffiti. I think you were asking me something about graffiti, and I was just kind of like, I don't know if you were asking me like how do I come up with certain things and whatnot, and I was like, well, it depends, it's different. And one of the things now that I get to do, because I've done so many sketches, I have so many books, like sometimes I get the opportunity to paint a certain wall that's a certain shape or form or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I have no idea what I'm gonna paint on that, but let me just look through my books. Mm-hmm. And I look through my books, and it's like looking through a collection of ideas. Mm-hmm. And so I get to like, oh, the shape on this is perfect, the style for it fits like the environment, like we're gonna go with this, you know, or the message is perfect.
Yeah.
And
you start plug and play.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm happy that like at the time I did that. And I know when I did like that sketch, or I wrote down that idea at the time, I was passionate about it, you know. I was like, I'm gonna do this tomorrow.
Right.
Why wait tomorrow? I'm gonna start tonight, you know. And then there was a part of me that was like, all right, let's be realistic. Like you gotta work in the morning.
Right.
Like you gotta do this and that in the morning. And I was like, cool, it's okay to leave on the back burner. And then
it'll come back around.
Yeah. Or sometimes I'd be like, I'll pick it up on Monday. Monday comes around, like Wednesday, Friday, and eventually a month passes by and you just forget about it completely. And it's like, it's okay, because it's like it's manifested, it's in a book, and I'll make my way back to it when I need it.
Right. Man, that's crazy you said that, because like, you know, I'm writing this book, right? Mm-hmm. I think you know that. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to figure out how to I was gonna write this like outro, mm-hmm. and I'm like, I know what I want to say, but how do I start it? You know, like this and that, and I just like, I was stuck for like a good 15 minutes. You know, I like write something, it's like, nah, that ain't it.
Yeah.
That ain't it. And then what I did was I opened up my journal, and I'm like, you got everything you want to say in these journals throughout the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You know, I got journals from like when I was 16. Like these are the things that I was trying to portray those same stories, and I'm like, I can't say those same stories word for word because some of it's no longer true, right? Like from that, I was writing that present tense, mm-hmm. but now that's past tense.
Yeah.
But there's also now there was things that I was saying that I wanted to do, but now when I wrote the outro, it was like, man, I did those things.
Yeah.
You know, so it's cool. Right now when you mentioned your portfolio, you know, you open that up and it's like it's a book full of ideas. It's like, man, it's the journals that I realized I did that the other day too. And like after reading through some of them, I was like, here's these 4 or 5 journals that are like, and then obviously I have to fill in some things.
Yeah.
But like that was it, you know.
Yeah, that's why it's super important to write that stuff down and remember it. You know, I think that like when we talk about some of the authors that we read, they kind of press you on like, you have an idea, write it down, you should journal, you gotta write these things down. If it's in the middle of the night, get ready with that pen and paper right next to your bed, because you never know, you know, some of those might be $1 million ideas, not right now, not tomorrow, maybe 5-10 years from now, like it's gonna pop up when you need it. And this is where I was kind of like just trying to get to when you were talking about like, you know, you're the type of person to get the ball and run through motherfuckers and shit until you score. But there's also, you know, when you had certain ideas, and I was like, okay, cool, like maybe it's a dope idea, but the timing ain't right. You know,
Right.
let's table it. But I never just completely dismiss it, and I think the art show was one of those things, right? Where
Oh, we talked about the art show, what, sometime when we met?
yeah,
When we first started getting cool.
I think so that was kind of like one of the things that we talked about. I think we even had like a meeting. We just like it was for something else, and we ended up writing down all these ideas for
the
like.
show, for the art show.
And it wasn't even an art show. It was just kind of like, oh, it's gonna be like a little tianguis, like a little swap meet, and we have vendors and food and music.
Was it the little grand opening idea that we had?
Something like that. And then somehow that ended up splitting into like, well, that could be its own thing.
Something.
Yeah. So then it's just funny that like
which is still ideas that we can
still happen.
revisit,
Yeah. And it's like again, I remember taking fucking vigorous notes that time. You know, like we just had a whole page of notes, and like I still have it in my book and everything. So when like the show happened, I was just kind of tripping out, like, damn, this is kind of what we always wanted to do. And even when the opportunity arose, it was kind of like, oh, it almost felt like, okay, cool, I got your okay already. Even though I hadn't even brought it up to you, you know?
You already knew.
Yeah, I already knew. I'm like, and they're just like, we need somewhere to put the artists and stuff. Like when they're Inwood Open Studios was asking me, you know, like, do you know a place? And I was like, of course I know a place, you know? I know multiple places, but I know one that's gonna be like, this is what we talked about a long time ago, and it's
Right.
already, it's done. I got it, you know?
Yeah.
And I said yes before you even said yes, you know? Because I knew that once I brought it up to you, it's just gonna be like, yeah, let's do it, you know?
There's no thought process.
Yeah,
as long as
yeah.
the date worked, we're gonna figure it out.
Exactly.
As long as I'm in town, we're doing it.
Yeah,
I might
yeah.
cancel a trip if I'm not in town.
yeah.
That's crazy, man. That I was thinking right now as we're talking through all these like changes and hard times that we've gone through over the last, the course of what, 2 or 3 years now that we've known each other. One of those big transitions was when you first started training with us. We were training fight ready.
Yeah.
Right? And you came into a fight ready that was already pretty established. And I'm not saying in the world, I'm saying in the lab, right? And like that's what we were doing. And then you also like you came in a little bit prior to that, to the point where I was like, that's not it no more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I think I might have shared that with you. And I didn't share that with the only other person that knew that was Seabass. And both of you guys looked at me confused, like,
yeah,
what the heck? What, like, the fuck you mean?
Then what are we doing?
Yeah, then what are we doing? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Because I didn't. You know what I mean? Like, I just knew. Like, I woke up one day, man, and I was just like, this isn't it. I couldn't explain it. I couldn't tell you why. I couldn't tell you. Now I know all the answers to those questions, but at that time, all the questions you guys were asking me were all questions I had for myself.
Yeah.
And I had to go look for those answers. And like, I think you remember I took a lot of time off. Like I was doing a lot of little trips. I was not on the mat. Seabass was primarily teaching everything.
Yeah.
And Seabass kind of carried me and the lab for a little while. And there was just a huge transition, and like now you see what it turned into.
Yeah.
Right? And now I think you know the answers to some of those questions because you and I talk, off record and off training outside of that, like on a personal level. What was that like for you? I know what it was like for me, but what was that like for you?
I think because, like you said, aside of being one of your students, I would come in, meet with you, we'd have meetings, discussing work and stuff, and a lot of those meetings would just turn out to be sessions where we both talked about our shit, like we were just
like
talking. Therapy sessions, that's all they were, and they were dope. So I would feel your energy on the days that you came in and you weren't 100% here. And not everybody did, I think everybody was still caught up in their own shit, living their own lives, that they're in their own head, they're here for class, they're focused on that. I'm the type of person that immediately can read the room, immediately read people and feel that energy and like pick it up.
And then you know me.
Yeah.
Like, you know me.
Yeah, so I'm like,
Yeah.
something's not cool. And I would ask you too, like, is everything cool with you? You
I'll
know?
say, yeah, of course I would.
You know, and it's like, you would say, yeah, but it's like, I knew you weren't, you know, eventually we talk, you know, on the weekend or something, and it's like, you would tell me. So, you know, I could feel the uneasiness, and when I feel that with other people, I also gotta fight to keep myself in balance. I gotta not show it because I know that you don't need that either, right? Like, you don't need me knowing that you're uneasy or that you're going through something, and then all of a sudden I'm feeling, I'm like, nah, like the homie needs support, so like I gotta be a rock right now too, you know. And I just remember, yeah, that feeling of uneasiness, like not knowing exactly what was gonna happen next. I knew that we were gonna stop. You know what I mean? Like that was never.
That was never a doubt, right?
No,
it's not a
no.
question. It's not a.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think. Like, I guess I was wondering, like, well, what's next? You know, like, you know, for you, for the lab, for all of us as students, like as a class, like, what's next? Like, what's happening right now? And it's that level of uneasiness where it's like, I think the more shit that we go through, the more, you know, comfortable we get with being uncomfortable.
All the time. So I don't remember the last time I was comfortable.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
it's just writing it out and trusting you, you know, trusting ourselves too. That like, okay, cool, like we can get through this.
Right.
You know, whatever's happening right now, we can get through it.
Right.
And I just remember the first initial conversations of like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about naming it, you know. And you told me, I was like, and even the naming thing was a big thing, right? We kept going back and forth. I was like, but what are we naming? You know, I was like, it's hard for me to help. I was like, I don't know what it is, you know?
I couldn't even respond to you
Yeah.
though, at that time still.
Yeah.
Because everything was still a concept in my head.
Yeah.
Right? And like it wasn't clear enough for me to even say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I just knew that name, like, it reflected the painting in my head
Mm-hmm.
without limiting it.
Yeah.
Right? Because that was one main thing I kept telling you about Fight Ready. The style was, Fight Ready was more of a system than a style, but it was limited to only ever being fight ready.
Yeah.
Right? It could never be more than that.
Yeah.
Ever. And the philosophy and the purpose of Fight Ready were contradicting each other,
Mm-hmm.
which was what made it just, it's like you can't have that.
Yeah.
But the way the new element, what does that even mean? There's no ending to what that means or what it is. You define it.
Yeah.
And you can redefine that as many times as possible, which is why I really, like, I kept telling you for a long time I wasn't married to the name.
Yeah.
You
Since I think we started running strategy and changing things around. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just, but at one point I was like, there's nothing else that I can think of or that we thought of.
Yeah.
Or, because I spoke to a lot of people, primarily you,
Mm-hmm.
about it, but it was like, everything else puts a limit.
Yeah.
Everything else puts a limit. And then you were also telling me about it not being so direct, right? Like,
Yeah.
but then I was telling you about every other martial art, it literally means what it is,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
karate means open hand, which
Yeah.
means there's no weapons when you fight, right? Like every style, like, you know, judo means the gentle way. Like everything was just so literal.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And it's funny, like now that it's defined, it's like I can't see no other way. And I feel like the answers were there in front of our face the entire time, right?
Yeah.
It just really meant, like I said, giving that the time of day.
And trusting,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, like what you were doing was right. What was written a long time ago was right. Like
Yeah.
you've been right, you know.
Yeah.
It's trusting yourself. more
Trusting
than anything.
myself and like, just that.
Yeah.
You know, but that at that time, if you remember, I was having a hard time doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I was going through some shit, man.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that, you know, added up to me feeling how I was feeling. It wasn't just the martial arts stuff, but like that whole journey, in hindsight, was me leveling up to becoming the new element.
Yeah.
Right? And,
Yeah.
and you got to see that in real time.
Yeah.
What was that like on your end? Like I said, I know what it felt on my end.
Well, it was just like kind of like seeing a torch that hadn't been lit in a while, you know what I mean? And then when it happened, it's like full blast, like you can feel it. Like I said, if I could feel the energy when I would come in here and you were off, immediately I felt off, everything felt off. And it was just kind of like, I don't want to say from one day to the next, but it almost feels like that where I came in the next day and it's like, you were good, you were back, like, you were lit,
and
you know?
somewhere else though, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't back to who I was. It was
exactly.
it was weird because I was a whole nother man, but not really.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how to explain it.
No, yeah. Because you were still on, like, you would come on the mat, you teach us.
I finally came back on the mat.
Yeah. And even like we meet one-on-ones, you know, and we do our sessions, like, I was still learning. I would still go home feeling like, damn, I learned some new shit, you know, and I could apply it and it would work. So obviously you're still the same, like, person, but I guess, like, spiritually, mentally, like, you know, got leveled up, like you said.
I think just everything just aligned a little bit more.
Yeah.
I can see I've been saying this a lot recently, but like I feel like this is the clearest I've ever been able to see myself and my vision at the same time. It's still not fully like, I don't think I'll ever be able to say like, I can see it, you know what I mean? Like I think the day that I get to see it will be the day that I take my last breath too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'll be like, oh, there it is. I get to witness it for a second and then I'll be gone.
Yeah.
You know, like my timing will be done, but you know, that day comes when it comes. But like it you know, for me, it felt amazing, you know, on a personal level to like be able to get through that stage, you know. I don't know if you remember, man, like I would watch you guys take class and I would stand on the edge of the mat and never walk in.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Do you know how hard I tried? I could not get myself to walk on the mat.
Yeah.
And I recently had a conversation with, like, these are things that I never told anyone, you know. I couldn't, I didn't know how. But now I got into a point where I can speak about it. I told Steve, I said, we had a conversation and I was telling him that like, I couldn't get myself to walk on the mat. And it's because I felt like I was no longer fight ready. Like I no longer believed in it.
Yeah.
How can I get on the mat? You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't that I wasn't ready to fight, because like that's clear as day, right? Like that's, I mean, like this is what I do. But I no longer believed in it like I once did. But that defined who I was for so long.
Yeah.
I like, it took me years to develop that. So then who was I? You know what I mean? And the only person that I felt at that time was worthy of being fight ready was Seabass. And I felt happy that I was able to have a personal conversation with him and tell him that.
Yeah.
And that's why he was teaching me.
Yeah.
You know, he was more fight ready than I was at that time.
Yeah.
And the way that I was telling you that that's when the purpose and the philosophy were contradicting each other, because that was a direct reflection of what was going inside of me.
Yeah.
My purpose and my philosophy were no longer matching. My philosophy was evolving, but my purpose was still, I want to be the baddest motherfucker on the planet. I want to be able to beat like, but that's not what my purpose isn't to be that.
Yeah.
It was like changing. So it was like, how do I be both?
Yeah.
You know? So to me, it felt great to like, for one, be able to see past that, and then also realize like, because the way I was looking at it was like, fight ready failed.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Which meant that I failed.
Yeah.
But if this is what's been defining who I am, that means that I'm a failure. Like that's how I was feeling, right? But then over time and a lot of conversations and a lot of you guys is holding me up, man, I realized that Fight Ready didn't fail. It lived up to its purpose.
Yeah.
That's just no longer what I wanted to be my purpose.
Yeah.
Right? So it was time to evolve the style, which is what happened, right?
Yeah.
Which is the same thing that happened with all the styles I trained.
Yeah.
The purposes that they were created for they're still true today. Those are just no longer the reasons that I train for, which is why no longer training those disciplines is like, that's why I teach the way to new element, not those, right? So I realized that that's what it was. It wasn't that, it didn't define me. But that took a long time to process.
Because it was new.
Right.
You know, it's all new. Like you hadn't done that. So of course, like you can't define how you're gonna react to it, to something new.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to mention what I literally spent the last 5 years of my life dedicating my life to. Right. So it was cool, but I think what I'm trying to say was like, man, I just feel extremely grateful to you guys for one, on a personal level, just hearing me out, not leaving my side, you know what I mean, and just trusting me. Because every time that you guys asked me what was next, I didn't know what to answer. I told you guys that. But I also kept telling you guys, like, it's coming though. Like, just trust me. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, the answer is there. I just gotta figure it out. So I just feel extremely grateful that you guys didn't. You guys could have all jumped ship. You know what I mean? All of you guys. But every single one of you guys that was there is still here today. And most of you guys that were there are now leveled up and now giving back. Right? You guys are all have became a pillar in our community and hold up the lab in the way to new element. You know, you guys are a direct reflection that this works. Right? Like the way to new element, the moment that I became it, I knew it was possible. I knew that it was true. Right? But when you guys leveled up, that means that solidifies it. Right? And obviously there's still a lot of groundwork to be like, I mean, this is all from my mind, right? This is all coming from like somewhere in there. Like I think the universe is speaking through me. But there's still groundwork to be developed and all of that. But what I know is like, man, like this works. This is truth. This is like, it's there. You guys will keep proving that every day you walk in here. You know? So I just want to thank you for that.
No, of course.
Cheesy and shit.
No. It's dope to hear out loud. I feel like it's even been a minute since we've been able to have a sit down and talk, you know? Both of our schedules got all crazy and weird and just trying to survive in life
trying
itself.
To keep up, man. Just trying to keep up in life. But that's the cool thing, right? We understand that.
Yeah. And there's no like kind of personal shit that we take towards it. You know?
Or pressure on it, you know what I mean? Like, we get it. You can't do it, you can't do it. You know? Man, speaking about that balance, like, I mean, dude, like you train, you work, you have a wife, you have a daughter, you got friends. Like, what does that look like for you, man? Because, like, from the outside looking in, okay, this is my perspective, like, you got that shit, right? And I know that probably doesn't feel that way. But I say this from a perspective of like, yo, George, can you meet up? You know, we got some, and we've been buzzing about these ideas, right? And then you'll hit me with like, oh man, I'm spending time with the girls, right? To me, that's dope. You've learned how to make the time for your wife and your daughter, right? Or even just on some other like, no man, I'm going to somebody's birthday party or whatever those, like you learn how to do that. I don't think I've figured that out yet. So that's what I'm saying. Like I'm like, you know this, like I lost my relationship off this, like when I got into a project, like, yo, I'm not going home. Until I'm finished. That's what I'm talking about. I go through motherfuckers with the basket, you know what I'm saying? I'm scoring. But then there's often times where like I'll lose everything around me just to get that bucket up. You know? And I'm trying to get better at it. So that's why I'm like, that question comes from that perspective. Like, you may not feel like you got that shit figured out, but from my perspective, it looks like you have.
I think definitely don't have it figured out. You know,
I knew he was gonna say that. I knew he was gonna say that.
But there's been fucking some major changes that I had to make about myself, and I think even there was one time where, you know, you came to kick it, and I had a few beers in me, and I was like, I'm being honest with Coach right now. I was like, I was never this human being. Like, I was hella selfish. I was, I felt like I was the type of motherfucker that like was using all of my powers for the worst reasons. You know, like I was blessed with gifts. You know, even the gift of being able to like read the room and stuff like that. Instead of using it for something positive, I use it for something negative, or like. And don't think to do people dirty. It was like a personal benefit from it,
Of course.
you know.
That's our human nature.
Yeah, yeah, and to, like step on people's heads to get to the top, you know. And I think a lot of it came from being around the wrong people. Doing what I did growing up involved being around the wrong people. You know, like graffiti, for example. You're going out, you're breaking the law. Like, there's not many people that you're gonna meet that go around breaking the law, and they're great humanitarians, they're amazing people. Right. They're out there, but they're not many.
Right. Right.
And I sure wasn't kicking it with them. So you start picking up, those are just habits. Mm-hmm. And you start picking those up. And this is years of accumulation of that stuff, you know? That you get to being an adult, you get to deciding that, like, you get in a relationship and you decide to stay in that relationship no matter what. Like, all your true colors are gonna come out. You know, and sometimes even they come out, and you don't want to accept that your color is purple, even though everything you touch is turning purple. You know what I mean? Yeah, and so like that happened for a long time, and I think I needed to hit a rock bottom. You know, I made a lot of drastic changes in my life. Quit my job, decided to work for myself. Quit smoking weed after smoking weed since I was like a kid, you know, like a little kid, like yeah, like a little kid. Like that affects you like big time, believe it or not.
I mean, they say your brain's not fully developed till you're 21, right?
Yeah.
And that's when, if you're gonna smoke weed, it should be after that.
Yeah. So no, I was like in middle school doing this. Like that's bad. And and so like when I hit that rock bottom, like I just hit this crazy depression. A lot of it was just a chemical imbalance. Right. You know, my life was unbalanced. Like my reality, my finances were unbalanced. Like all of this stuff was super messed up, and I decided to do it when the fucking world decided to shut down. You know, COVID, and that was just like terrible timing. But I think if I could, I wouldn't change it because like it was hard as fuck. You know, and like I get to say I went through it, and I don't know if I beat it, but like. I'm still standing, you know, and I came out the other end like way better, you know.
You have no choice. If you want to make it out the other end, it's gotta be that.
And it could have been easy. I could have easily gone back to just like working for somebody, you know, going back to smoking and drinking a lot and doing all that. And I didn't. Like I fought against all of those things, and like I get to say I beat them and I won. But because I made those changes where I was just fed up, like. And I still have them to this day, you know. Like I think right now I'm going through something, and I'm fed up, and I'm like I can't keep doing this. I gotta switch it up, right. And it's like, am I gonna do it again? Like, of course I'm gonna do it again. Like I have to, you know.
There's no. You just know you gotta prepare for it.
Yeah. So it's just you know, I changed up, and even Susie was kind of like, who the hell is this person? Like I don't even know if I like this motherfucker. You know what I mean? Even though I'm doing better, like. I'm not. I used to just blow up. I couldn't have a conversation. I couldn't sit down and talk. Like that's ridiculous. So the second that I was like, all right, let's talk, she'd be like, hold up, like let me put my gloves on, like let me square up, because like what you mean you want to talk? Like you setting me up, like nah, I want to talk, you know? And it's just like,
yo, that's crazy though, right? How you've gotten her accustomed to such a version of you that when you do better or you try to. She doesn't believe it, right?
It hurts.
I noticed that too, right? Because it's like, and that's not like, what you doing, right? Like it's like,
you're setting them up,
right?
You know?
You're setting them up, and it's like, or you got them in fight back mode, because they're so used to you attacking, right? Or being so aggressive, whatever that is, right? And then when you try to take that step back, it's hard for them to.
So. It took a long time too to just let her also develop into getting accustomed to this change, you know? And Yeah, and I think I just started developing like a whole new level of respect for her, and it came from respecting myself, from being able to be like, I'm not gonna do these shitty decisions anymore, and I gotta put in this work. That you start seeing other people that like, you know, how hard they beat themselves up over simple things. Mm-hmm. And I think we've had arguments before. I'm just like, hey, I know at the end of the day, like, you're mad at yourself, and I'm telling you, like, it's okay. Like, you don't gotta be perfect. Like, I don't love you for being perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I love your imperfections, and like, I want to see you kind of go through it, figure it out on your own, and realize that at the end of the day, you're human and you make mistakes. Like, that's cool, you know, because I see that, and so like, I don't hold it against you,
right?
Because I did that for a long time,
right?
Like, I still sometimes need to let go, and that's helped me too. That like, sometimes I forget some shit, you know, and I'm just like, okay, cool, I'm human. You know what I mean? But at least I acknowledge it, and that's a big difference, right? Like,
it's the accountability.
Yeah, accountability, big time.
The self-awareness too, man.
Yeah.
Like that's something that's like huge.
Yeah. And yeah, like right now, like I'm just like, those are two things that I'm kind of trying to like really hone in on hard right now. It's like accountability and self-awareness. And Susie's called me out on some things that I'm just like, but fuck, you're right.
Right.
You're right, and I hate it so much because it's just like I don't like that person. I don't like those type of people, and I am being that person.
Right.
And that
but not to mention, you want to get frustrated and get mad at her for calling you that.
Yeah.
Right? But you gotta put your ego to the side and realize, like, wait, but I have been.
Yeah.
Shout out to my homie Jima. I saw him post this thing the other day where he said, "It's hard to be frustrated when you take accountable for your actions and focus on the work."
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's some real ass shit. Cause like recently I've been moving on some more of that energy where like when something happens, I just go, I see my play in that and how I played into that.
Mm-hmm.
I could do better next time, and then just let it be.
Yeah.
And then just work on it, right? Focus on the work, on actually making the change instead of focusing on they did this or they like. I don't blame them at all.
Yeah.
I take full responsibility for my portion of it, and then just try to work on it. Yeah. But yeah, shout out to Jima. I saw that and I was like, man, that's some real shit. But
yeah. No, it's true. I think being able to focus on your path, you know, and like you said, you can't start blaming other people. Yeah. Like that shit holds you back, you know. All those things are just like,
it makes you look stupid, man.
Yeah.
Just straight up look stupid, like a clown. Like what?
yeah. Like that's some things that like I don't want to dwell on. Like I think I told myself that too. I think at the beginning of the year, one of my things was like, you know what? Like I gotta start just being like more happy for people's wins, you know, even if like I know that motherfucker and that motherfucker ain't the fucking never been 100% with me or been true with me. If I see him winning, I just gotta be like, good for him, you know. It's that simple, and I move on with my shit, you know what I mean? But there'd be times where I would see that and I'd be like, why does he get that shit? Like that fool never fucking paid me, or he talked bad about me behind my back, like he did all these things, and I'm like, he don't deserve that. And I'm like, I need to let go of that, you know, of like trying to wish that stuff on other people and just being like, you know what, like he's doing good for himself, probably doing good for, if he does good for himself, he's doing good for like whoever's close with him. That's cool, you know, like I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, because when I do what I do, I get that same kind of shit back too, and so do my people. So.
Right. And I think also one thing that I've realized, right, the energy I've been moving off lately is like not taking shit so personal. Yeah. You know, like, I mean, I'll never forget this one time, you know, I was probably like 16 and I started working with a new coach. And an old coach, you know, who I looked up as a mentor, went and talked to my new coach and was like, yo, be careful with Nation, like, he don't have heart. And he don't have no real consistency or loyalty. And I was like, that shit hurt, man, because I looked up to this dude like he's my mentor. Yeah. And also, what the fuck you mean I don't got heart? Like, do you not see my fucking resume? Yeah. Like, how could I have done any of this shit if I didn't have heart or consistency or loyalty? Like, what are you talking about? And like, for so many years, bro, that shit fueled me. Like, I was angry. And I held that shit personal. And only recently did I realize that, like, from his perspective, based on his agenda, and based on his goals and ideas for me,
Yeah.
I wasn't consistent. But that's because I was loyal and consistent and had heart for my own shit.
Yeah.
You know, he wanted me to be his employee.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted me to be his, you know, star boy in his gym and shit like that. I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be that for my own shit.
Yeah.
So, but it's crazy how, like, somebody will be so quick to take it personal because you weren't that for what their dream of you was.
Yeah.
And then go ahead and call you out on that. But it's like, man, I can't take that personal. I just got to do me and understand that, for one, I got to stick to my principles and my moral code and my mission, regardless anyways. But because like for so long, I felt like it dragged me down, just taking it, like I felt that it was personal.
Yeah.
You know, I was taking that personal. Because even that didn't stop my new coach from training me,
Mm-hmm.
loving me, mentoring me. He was like another father figure, you know what I'm saying? It didn't stop nothing,
Mm-hmm.
but it lived in my head rent free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For so long. And it's funny, the only reason that I came to this conclusion was I saw that dude again. I see him all the time. And we shook hands, we said hi to each other, and then I was speaking to him, and he kept asking me this question. And like, he kept asking me if I still train today. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, but he kept asking me, and I'm like, I don't understand the question. I keep saying yes, but he's like, but like not this or not that or this, and like I'm like, I don't know, like what is that? Like, do I go take a class somewhere?
Yeah.
Like, no, do you? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
we don't do that shit. No,
Yeah.
I don't. But like, do I still train? Every fucking day, like 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Like, but then I realized he's trying to make true this story that he has of me in his head,
Yeah.
right? Because if it's true in his head, then it must be true in reality,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, man, I can't waste my time. Like me, I
Yeah.
can't waste my time. Like in that moment, I was still trying to prove to him that I was something.
Yeah.
And I realized that I let him win in that moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then after I went home and I had like, I'm telling you, it was in my head.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about this, and then I realized like, oh, he's got a certain story that he made up of me in his head. And if he makes it true, and it's like, if he keeps asking this question to make it true, and if it is, then he'll feel better about himself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when I realized that, I felt like a weight off my shoulders. Because I'm like, for one, you already passed the expectations.
Yeah.
If he's got to do all of that,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I'm saying? But anyways, that's just some shit that I was thinking about. It's like, we can't take shit personal.
Yeah.
Because for a long time too, I kept looking at his videos like, yo, my man, like, you don't even really do it, bro. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You
yeah,
don't even do it like you say you do it. But people don't know that.
Yeah.
So they go train with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you know what? I ain't never spoke bad about him. I've never told nobody nothing. And I'm gonna keep it that way.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I realize that, like, I don't have to be that guy.
It says more about you, you know? Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna keep like being loyal, have heart and dedication for the shit that I'm on,
Yeah.
and don't worry about the expectations of anybody, you know.
Yeah. No, I
And
know.
then let them win,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Let them
Like,
be the hero of their own story.
They gotta be.
Why are you gonna go out of your way to try to prove them wrong? Because then you do become that person. You do
Right.
become the villain,
And
even
listen-
if like you're doing all of this good. Yeah.
Then I prove them right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, man, I'm not that person,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna prove. Like, I'm gonna prove it by not proving it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like, I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
gonna do me. But man, all that shit being said, I asked you a whole bunch of questions. Is there anything you want to ask me about?
Damn, I hadn't even thought about that. Man, I'm trying to think.
I like that one.
Shit.
Um,
I wish I would have came more prepared for that, you know?
Hey man, I just want to throw it in the mix, you know.
Yeah. I mean, if I can't think of it now, I'm gonna text you. I'll tell you during class, before class, after class.
I mean, you know how we do. But either way, I'm sure this won't be the last episode we do together anyway.
No, yeah.
But I do got one more for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's one thing that you learned from me that you've taken and made it a part of who you are, and like it's still true for you today?
You know, it's maybe not like literal, but I remember when you were first kind of teaching me to strike, you know, and you would do something like, you know, with the elbows, for example, and I'd be throwing up, and then you'd be like, okay, you would stand behind the person, you know, holding the pad, but then you'd be a little bit off, and you'd be like, you gotta get like ripped through it and pretend you're trying to hit me, and I was like, but how does, okay, no, that makes sense. And then I did it, and you feel that power. That kind of really kind of translates back over into something else that you taught me too, which is kind of like how to put up a poker face. Like, never show your opponent that you're tired, that you're in pain, that you're injured.
You don't
like,
display your spirit.
Yeah. Like, no, like you'd be screaming it when it's evident. Like, hey, you're showing your spirit, you know. And like, I take that into like everything that I do, you know. Even if it's a client meeting, you know, and it's a professional setting, they be pissing me off sometimes. They be saying some things that, I mean, you said it, that like, luckily, like not currently, you know, but in the past, I've been in some situations where people really undermine who you are again because they see a brown hood motherfucker, you know what I mean? Even if I start speaking the way I speak, like they're just like not sold by it, you know?
Right.
And they try to bring that out in you. And so I want to show it, you know what I mean? And I want to resort to like what makes me comfortable and what I know best. But it's like, tell myself in the back of my head, like, don't show your spirit. Like, don't let them know that. Don't let them know that you're mad, that you could, you know, flip this table over, or you could jump across the table really quick. Like,
yeah, you can whoop his ass if you need to.
Yeah, like, don't show any of that, you know? Like, play the game, you know? Plug and play. Shit, I don't know how to play chess, but start playing chess right now, you know? And so that's something that, like, I do take across, like, everything that we do all the time, you know? Even when we're here training and you're making us do some heavy ass fucking workouts or some difficult ass workouts, like, I gotta, in my head, I tell myself that, like, oh, this is nothing, like, oh, I could do this, even though, like, I'm aching right then and there, and then the next day, like, I'm hurting, you know what I mean, I'm all sore, and I don't want to be walking around like this, especially in public, so, like, I'm just walking through the pain, like nothing, you know, and again, it's just, I like that, you know.
And it helps you get through it easier too, man.
Yeah, like there's worse shit. I mean, even when we tested for our belt, like that was like confirmation, you know, like you said that the way the new element works and that like it's in me, you know what I mean? Like I can push through even when I felt that like I can't no more, like I lost control of my breathing. Like
the cramps, the broken toes.
Yeah.
I don't remember what, like, I mean, just tiredness too, right? Just like
mentally not even being
pressure.
There. Yeah.
But it's in you.
Yeah.
Right.
And like somehow you brought it out in us, you know, and it felt dope. I told you like there was a moment where I just felt like collapsing because all of you guys were on me, and I was like, and somehow I felt like fucking a super saiyan right there. I was like, ah, like everybody fucking got the fuck off of me, and I was like, I don't know where that came from because at that point, like all of my muscles and like were drained. I felt dehydrated. Like I was the worst at that moment. But that was again like
where the impossible comes true, huh?
Yeah. And that was a beautiful moment for me. That I think when you did the ceremony for us and presented us with that belt, I should have just cried because I just felt myself like watering up and like get choking up, you know.
I think both of you guys did.
Yeah, and I saw Will just like straight up, you know.
I think
like,
me too. I might have.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I should have just like cried like a baby because that's how I felt, and I felt like ain't nobody here gonna tell me no different because they saw like what I did, you know.
We also already like. Man, you know how many times I felt like that after receiving the belt?
Yeah,
you know, like we've been through that.
Yeah.
You know?
That was beautiful. Thank you for all that, you know? Yeah.
Thank you. Like, man, it's a beautiful, like, you gotta remember, man, like, if it's beautiful for you, it's gotta be beautiful for me.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't like to take any credit or any of literally any credit away. Like I'm just happy I could be a part of your journey. You know, like you put the work in, you put the effort in, you consistently show up for yourself. But it's definitely like, thank you for letting me be a part of it. Thank you for trusting me. And man, thank you for all the things that you consistently show me and teach me and are a part of my life. You know, like now I can't imagine my life without you.
No, I feel the same way. Yeah.
It's crazy, man. Like, you know, I think we speak on a daily basis. Like, you know, so it's crazy. Like just on everything, man. I appreciate you. First episode of the Champs Corner. We'll be back with more.
Hey.